M50 is an interchangeable lens camera. That means you can add lenses to it. Usually it comes with this 15 to 45mm lens, basically called a kit lens. It's pretty simple, it works decently well, gives you some zoom on there. Let's put it on. Got this little white dot. Line it up with the white dot on the lens. Rotate, and that's it. You also have to undo this little travel lock thing here, otherwise it just won't work. Do the same thing to lock it down again. You can see when the lens is locked, you can't do anything with the camera besides going into the menus if you want. However, we undo the lock, and at that point you can use the camera. On the top of the camera you have the mode dial. It's very important for using the camera. We are in the automatic mode. It's got a green icon with a little A inside. We can go to Program, Shutter Priority, Aperture Priority, Full Manual, Video Mode. Then we've also got the Creative Filters, Scene Modes, and also the Hybrid Auto. We're going to focus only on this automatic mode today. See in the menus, you can hit a little drop down, get some more information about each setting. So if you went to Program, hit the drop down, gives you a little more information. Let's go back to the main automatic mode. So it's called Scene Intelligent Auto. This is a very basic mode. It gives you some ways to adjust the photos, but if you want to learn more about actual photography with the main settings, shutter, aperture, ISO, you don't want to use this mode all the time. You want to eventually grow from this mode, but this is the basic one. It's a good starting point to just use your camera properly, get some decent photos out of it. In this automatic mode you have very limited settings, but you can adjust things. Let's go into this little icon down here. See, that gives you a few options. Also have a setting enabled to give you some more information on that. You can hide that if you want. Background blur, brightness, contrast, saturation, color tone, and monochrome. You can also use the flash if you want by physically popping it up. The most important thing about cameras is focal point. With lenses like this, with cameras like this, they have a large sensor. There will be a difference between what is in focus and what is not in focus, usually, depending on your aperture. You can actually adjust that in the settings here. So go into background blur. You can do fully blurred or sharp. What that is doing is changing the size of the hole in the lens to give you more depth of field. So you can learn about that in the future, but basically gives you a simple way to adjust background blur. You can see when I select different areas of the photo, this becomes blurry because it's in the foreground or in the background. So if we go back to that blur setting, see that it does help this foreground object when we switch from blurred to sharp, but there is only so much it can do in this setting. It's really important. You need to learn that in your photography. You want to control where the focal point is. In certain situations it won't be as big of a deal, but in this case these things are very close to the camera, so you can see a very big difference between what is in focus and what is out of focus. So in the background, that P is in focus when I touch it, and the little figure here is in focus when I touch it. This little icon on the top here, you can undo whatever selection you made and just let the camera try to focus. See, it makes a little white box where it's trying, and you can also decide. Cancel it out. Works pretty nicely. You have a few different settings here on the side. So one for single shooting, high speed continuous, timers. The second icon is image quality, and here we can do JPEGs and RAWs. Basically JPEGs are images that are pre-done for the most part, and just take those. You can have those printed automatically, and the RAW images are much larger. They give you a lot of more flexibility, but you need special software to deal with those. Now if you want to kind of future-proof yourself, you can do both of them at the same time, which I would suggest, and you just use the JPEGs until you feel comfortable trying to work with the RAW images. So these are different quality levels for the JPEGs. The L with the nicest little icon there is the best one, and then it goes down into lower qualities. And then also press the info button to go into the RAW images. You have regular RAW and compressed. Compressed just gives you a little bit more space. You don't use as much for each image, but it is good to do RAW if you can. You have large cards, it's not a problem. This icon here is for automatic shutter. When it's on, you can just press the screen and it'll take a photo. So I'll just tap the screen here. It automatically takes a picture where I wanted it to in that focal point. I personally don't like that, but you can turn it on if you want. If you don't want to keep pressing this little icon on the screen, you can use this Q set button to pop up the menu. Let's go into brightness. So in brightness, it's pretty self-explanatory. The darker, and you just go to brighter if you need that. What you want to look for here is things that are really super bright or super dark that won't be great for the photo. So you want to turn it down a little bit, maybe. Really depends on the situation. So if you just want to fine-tune your photos a little bit, you can do it with this. Or reset it right there. This big area here, you can see it's changing as I put more brightness in the photo or less. And it's called a histogram. Basically, you've got one side which is dark, one side which is light. You want to get it in the middle, kind of a nice little curve. But that way, if you want to adjust the brightness, you look at this histogram, see it's a very dark photo right now. It's having a little bit of peaking in some areas, but a lot of it's super dark. So we go back into this menu, change the brightness. See, it did change a little bit. It took some of this darkness area, kind of expanded it to the side. So you can adjust the brightness and deal with this little histogram to kind of improve your exposures. With contrast, you have low and high. You can see an example here changes how it looks. You can see more in this photo. It's not super dark or super light. However, go to the other side, it gets very extreme. The blacks are very dark, the lights are very light. So you can adjust that as you'd like. These only apply to the JPEG photos, of course. Same thing with saturation, but in this case it's colors instead of luminance. With neutral, we've got the colors very muted. We go up to vivid. The yellow gets much more yellow. Color tone, can mess with these. This is basically white balance, so you can see it's a very blue image. Or if you want it a little warmer, you can go to amber. But all of these are very self-explanatory. Same one with this second adjustment. If you want more magenta, more green in your photo, you can go to each one of these and adjust them as you would like. And monochrome is pretty self-explanatory. You can add kind of that sepia look if you want there, the classic look of no colors or one color. You can see this little flashing arrow. That basically means that the camera thinks you want to use your flash. What we can do there is just pop it out physically and then take a photo. Uses the flash automatically. See, it's not great. It's something to use with caution. It is an option if you see that little icon show up. It's basically telling you might want to use your flash. So we've got one photo and other, very different looking. So this is the one with the flash. This is the one without. There are a few things you might want to change in your menus. Down here, the menu icon, press that. So you have 4 different tabs. You can actually go into a more advanced menu system if you want. On this 4th tab, what you do is just press OK on this screen. It'll switch between standard and guided. So go in there and switch here to standard. See, it just looks different. It doesn't have that large screen. So go back into the menu. This is the standard look, but you can also change it back to the guided. Let's just do guided for now. Go back into the menu and you have the 4 tabs. One setting for functions, one for playback, and one for standard photo settings. Let's go into the first tab, standard settings. One thing you might want to turn on is this eye detect autofocus. See, it's giving you some information if you hover on that. So you enable it, it'll allow you to press on a person's face, it'll pick up their face potentially, and it'll be a little bit easier, a little bit more consistent when taking photos of people. You can also disable the camera from automatically trying to focus all the time. It'll save battery life, but it won't be as consistent. You can see the camera is not trying to constantly gain focus on something in the scene. So that's one option if you want to try that out. One thing you can turn on and off is this autofocus assist beam. There's a little light on the front of the camera that will help you focus in dark situations. It can be obnoxious, it can be distracting to people that you're trying to take photos of. I would suggest disabling it unless you really need to use it. One thing you probably want to check out are these touch and drag autofocus settings. What this happens is that when you're specifically using the viewfinder only, you can use the back screen to adjust your focus tapping on the screen as the camera is up to your face and adjust the focus point. In the eye settings, some lenses have stabilization in them, basically to avoid shaking your photos. Now this specific lens does have that in the lens and it is automatically enabled, and in this specific mode on the camera you can't disable it. However, this digital IS is related only to video. You can enable or disable that if you want. If the digital IS is enabled, but you do lose a little bit of your framing. See, it doesn't crop in nearly as much with it disabled, but there will be more shake in your video files. Here you can adjust which type of video mode you want. I would suggest simply using the 1080p 30 frames a second. Now if you are in Europe, you can actually adjust the camera to use those settings like 25 frames a second if you want, but you have to go into a different menu area. In the function settings, page 3, it says for NTSC on this video system. You can go to for PAL, the PAL region, which is 25 or 50 frames a second instead of the 30 and 24. Let's go into the function settings a little bit here. One thing to keep in mind is the format card. So in your SD card, if you want to clear out all the files, you can use this to do that. Just be careful, of course. And then also you have your wireless settings for an app on your phone if you want to use that. On page 4 of the function settings, if you don't want to use the viewfinder at all, you just want to use the back screen, you can actually set it to manual and set it to either the screen or the viewfinder. So if we do screen here, see, when I put my finger over the sensor, it's not going to switch to the viewfinder. So that's pretty much it. There are basic settings here in this mode. If you want to go into program or one of the other ones like shutter, aperture, full manual, which is what I use usually on this camera, those are options. Those are things you want to go into eventually. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Scott Photography Bonsai. Thanks.